Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Well,
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's show. My name is Yvette Jones Swanson, and I am one of the hosts here on Cliff Kelly's America's Heroes group. And I just want to say thank you all for watching. My title is National Veterans Housing Homeless Advocate and Consultant. I know it's a long title. I just came up with it about a month ago. You see, I've been housing homeless veterans for the past 21 years, and I was my first homeless veteran. And I'll tell y'all that story later. But what I want to do is just give everybody, if you're new to the show, just listen and you can catch up because I will fill you in with a lot of things. if you have seen the show, then you'll know Yvette stays busy. So the past 30 days has been packed. I mean, jam packed with a lot of good things that are happening in our homeless veteran community. I have an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding at Jesse Brown VA CRRC. And I take a team of professionals there once a month and we conduct a veterans housing workshop, as you see here. I picked these up at Jesse Brown today, and they're all over the place. So veterans are hearing about what we're doing in the community to help them not only get out of homelessness, help them through transition, but also help them buy a house, help them become investors and business owners. Because remember, I told you I was my first veteran that I housed out of homelessness. So that same cycle that I took myself through is what my team and I take another homeless veteran through. From homelessness through transition to renting an apartment, using various SSVF funding, and we'll get into that because that's part of what we're going to talk about today, to becoming homeowners, investors, and business owners. It's a wonderful thing. I don't know if I mentioned that we've done this for over 5,000 homeless veterans. When I say we, I had to have a lot of people pushing me behind and on side. And at one time, I had about 12 agents working in the office. And that's how we got it done. And what I'm seeing now is that big influx of veterans who we housed between 2004 all the way to, it was a long time, and we're still housing homeless veterans, is that now there has been $800 million grants, and you can find this on the va.gov website. $800 million VA awards, over $800 million in grants to help homeless and at-risk veterans and their families. SSVF. SSVF is Supportive Services for Veteran Families, and these are the agencies that will be or have already received this funding to house homeless veterans and at risk of being homeless veterans nationwide. I've been housing homeless veterans for 21 years. It's just something about homeless veterans that keep me coming back. I was at Jesse Brown today, and quite naturally, I'm going to see people I know. But today I saw 3 former homeless veterans that I had housed. One of them is still homeless. And he stopped me in my tracks when I saw him because 6 weeks ago, I thought he would have been someplace. But instead, he's been living, transitioning in Jesse Brown VA in the White Clinic for 6 weeks in a wheelchair. And at that moment when he told me that, I just filled with anger, rage, and sorrow because there are so many things that employees and the SSVF agencies can do to help these homeless veterans. $800 million. That's a lot of money. And that's a lot of money to house homeless veterans. And I do want to apologize because I got off script because it touched me so. This veteran is 77 years of age, living in a hospital where there are many resources, all the resources he really needs. It just takes the right people in the departments to come downstairs and get him to that transition. Instead, he's sleeping in his wheelchair in the clinic of the hospital. So I asked him, well, do they at least bring breakfast down? Do they at least bring coffee down? No. At 5:30 a.m., all the homeless veterans who are sleeping in that clinic have to leave. Now, why am I telling you all this? because it just says that we have a lot of work to do, all of us in the community. My name again is Yvette Jones Swanson, and I am a national veterans homeless housing advocate and consultant. I consult business owners and veterans who are homeless nationwide on how to access benefits, especially homeless veterans. I have a homeless veteran who is in Las Vegas, North Carolina, Ohio, all over the country. They contact me because I post on TikTok. If you're a homeless veteran anywhere, I want to send you the resources that you have access to or can gain access to so you don't have to be on the street. It's hurtful being homeless. I was a homeless female veteran more than 7 times. I just stopped counting. I can tell you every place I had to spend the night or nights during those homeless days. And that's what keeps me fueled every single day to work in this community. So I have an MOU, that's a memorandum of understanding, at Jesse Brown VA CRRC, where we conduct this workshop, and you can find this workshop on the VA Chicago Facebook page, and register and come out. If you're homeless, if you are an investor in the Chicagoland area and you're looking to help house homeless veterans, then come out and get the information. I am a realtor with Real People Realty, and I've been a realtor for 26 years. I've been a realtor at Real People Realty for 12 of those years. Housing homeless veterans for 21 years. In the past 12 months, oh, wow, they wrote this. We have housed 17 former homeless veterans, 8 new homeowners who actually came through the workshop, where we conduct the workshop every 4th Thursday of the month. And since January 2024, we've held 8 workshops at Jesse Brown VA CRRC. I have written personally 39 housing plans for veterans at risk of homelessness, homeless veterans, and investors local here in Chicago, Texas, Georgia, Las Vegas, South Carolina, and San Diego. You know why? Because $800 million nationally covers every 50 state, and we have homeless veterans in all of those states. Oh, here's a new one. I am Jesse Brown, VA, either the chair or the co-chair. I haven't made up my mind. I'm serious. I haven't made up my mind in the Mental Health Consumer Advocacy Council. And I also brought a brochure, Patient Advocacy Program. So I get to continue to stay in the neighborhood, in the community of serving veterans and hear what they have to say on how Jesse Brown VA can do better by us, the consumer, the patient, the veteran. So that's exciting. And here's another one. Oh, I also assisted with the Jesse Brown and Hines VA Medical Center Summer Stand Down. There's also a winter stand down that's coming up. It's a lot that's going on this month, this year, to service veterans in this community. So I hope you all can connect and get this information. To contact me, you can always email me at vetmentorsllc.com. That's, wait a minute, vetmentors at gmail.com. VETMENTORSLLC at gmail.com. And go to the website vetmentorsonline.com, or just Google my name, Yvette Jones Swanson. You'll find me. I won a grant, and that was really exciting because the grant that I won of $10,000 from the Skip platform, that is to service my business, Vet Mentors, in doing what I do for veterans in the community and just helping out everywhere I can. I'm also the founder and CEO of 100 Pretty Purses for Female Veterans, and we are celebrating 10 years this December 14th, 2024. 100 pretty purses for female veterans. Go to the website, just spell it out. No numbers is all letters. 100, well, you got to spell out. Use the 100. 100 pretty purses for female veterans.org or .com. 100 pretty purses for female veterans started as me literally needing something in my purse when I was homeless. When I was homeless in the early 90s, we didn't have wet wipes or anything portable like that. So I needed a wash rag and some soap and deodorant and clean underwear and some tights, a hat, whatever we need as a homeless female veteran, as a homeless person, period. But my focus was on, and still is on, homeless female veterans. So 100 pretty purses for female veterans came out of me knowing what a homeless female veteran needs. I was homeless over 7 times due to domestic violence by the hand of my Marine husband. Would go to the VA and the services, this $800 million that we're talking about, that wasn't available for us. We didn't have $800 million or SSVF organizations nationwide. We didn't have that. We had YWCA and Catholic Charities. If YWCA had a bed or if Catholic Charities had a bed, then we had a bed. Luckily, one of those many times that I was homeless, I did get to sleep at the YWCA in Evanston, Illinois. That turned out to be tragic, and I had to come back home. But this whole thing of serving our female veteran community is it comes out of love, and it comes out of a place of need and a desire to just want to do better, feel better, and get better. So 100 pretty purses for female veterans. We have an annual celebration. And I don't call it a Christmas party because I want everybody to be inclusive, all female veterans. So it's our end of year celebration to celebrate us as women, as mothers, as aunties, as grandmas. We buy everything for everybody. You know, as a single parent, my kids would bring me home a card that they made. Oh, I love it. I still have it in a photo album. But they got gifts that ran me 500, 600, maybe $1,000 each. So this holiday celebration of 100 pretty purses for female veterans is just for us. And you can register on Eventbrite if you are a female veteran, if you are a vendor who want or a donor who wants to help out with this annual, go to Eventbrite and do so. There's a link for everything. We have a couple of fundraisers that we're doing online, a Dream Quinn, Dreams to Hold On To. And we have a wine box, Ventrendi wine box. 4 of those. The Dreamer Quins, Dreams to Hold On To, that's Deborah Powell. She made 2 gorgeous, they're like Christmas dresses, they last forever. So, have a book out, 23 are all together. Oh, I wore my t-shirt just so y'all could see. So if you go on Amazon and type in my name, Yvette Jones Swanson, you can pull up all of my books. And I have a new journal that was released for veterans in therapy. And it was written by, well, it's produced by a veteran in therapy. That would be me. So we need stuff when we're visiting and having our meetings with our social workers, psychologists, or psychiatrists. We need to write some stuff down. So if you want to contact me, please do. Email me at vetmentorsllc@gmail.com or go to the website at vetmentorsllconline.com. The Veterans Village of Pembroke Hopkins Park in honor of Vietnam Army veteran John Anderson. Ooh, that's going to be a long journey, but it is so much fun getting to know what we need to do to build veterans villages. So we've met with several builders and investors. Mr. Anderson is now clearing the bush so we can see all the trees and we can have our developers walk through and make a plan how the houses are going to be. The team and I are meeting with developers. We have a grant writer. There are 60 single family homes in a 55 and over veteran community. That's the Veterans Village of Pembroke Hopkins Park, Illinois, in honor of Johnny Anderson. And three final things. I'm a panelist at the 2024 Women's Veterans Housing Summit, which is scheduled for Thursday, September 27th at 9 a.m. The summit will take place at DePaul University, 1 East Jackson Boulevard. And the theme for this summit is Visible Solutions in Invisible Scars, addressing housing challenges for women veterans. Didn't we just talk about that? And they're still going on. I was a homeless veteran back in the early 90s, over 30 years ago, and we're still talking about homeless veterans today. I'm also attending the Women Warriors Stand Down, which is October 11th at Malcolm X College. So you can come see me there. I'll be at the Veterans Resource Fair the very next day, October 12th, from 10 to 2 at Governor State University. So you see, everything because of the challenges that I went through in life, from basic training through marriages, homelessness, domestic violence, becoming a realtor, knowing how to house homeless people, knowing how to connect the dots. That's why I'm here today. Housing over 5,000 homeless veterans was not an easy task, but it was a learning experience, and I appreciate it because now we can house even more with this $800 million grants. So, boots on the ground, guys, boots on the ground. If you are an investor, you're a business owner, you have properties anywhere in the continental United States, contact me. I am a realtor. I can write you a plan as a consultant for you to operate your home in such a manner where you will be taking care of homeless and at risk veterans so that they won't be homeless. Then also help them have their plan to continue to thrive and to grow. That's how we build communities, and that's how we create legacies for families. My name is Yvette Jones Swanson. I am the proud owner and CEO of Vet Mentors, and I am the proud founder and CEO of 100 Pretty Purses for Female Veterans. And I live that life every day. I am Yvette, the vet, and my company is Vet Mentors. So, and people be teasing me about that, but you know what? It just happened that way. I want to thank everyone for watching here today, and to reach me again. Oh, and also, I do want to mention that this is a sponsorship show. So if you like what you see, you like the numbers that we're presenting to you, give me a contact call and you can be a sponsor on the show. If you have anything that is relevant for veterans who are at risk or homeless and you'd like to sponsor the show and get your business out there, then please contact me and we can definitely talk about that. Everybody is welcome, but everybody is not welcome. If you know what I mean. I am very choosy about the people I align myself with. Over 250 investors and management companies and private owners have entrusted their properties with me over the past 21 years. Yeah, it's been a lot, and we still need more. We need to spend this $800 million wisely, and it needs to be spent on programming and more efficiency. My end goal, or next, not my very end, but another goal is to create a master class for veterans, for realtors who are military relocation professionals nationwide, to teach them how to work with the homeless population and putting these pieces together, putting these resources together to get these veterans housed. There's so many resources. $800 million is not going to one agency, and all of these agencies do something different. You may have an agency who will be utilizing that money for furniture. Somebody might be utilizing that money for 9 months of rent. You have HUD who will utilize that money, but that money is even separated from what Section 8 gets. That's separate from the $800 million that the SSVF agencies will receive. SSVF simply stands for Supportive Services for Veteran Families. So look that up and look and see what agencies are receiving that money. This is your first homework. And if you want to contact me to be your consultant in assisting you in housing veterans, then do so. Vet Mentors, LLC at gmail.com. I want to thank you all for watching. And our time is almost up here. But just, take a moment and sit back and relax and, just take it all in. We have people who we need to service, and those people are why we're here to service veterans. And my stick is housing homeless veterans. How does a realtor make money housing homeless veterans? I get that question a lot. You're housing homeless people. Yeah. Well, homeless people come with services, and those services come with dollars. If you are a realtor looking for, um, what do they call it, a niche market, a niche market, this is definitely one. I've been in this space for 21 years, and this is a revolving door of veterans just coming, coming. It never stops. I fell sick with the heart attack, COVID-19, pneumonia, and a stroke and couldn't walk for 6 months and came back to the community. And the door was still going around and around and around because homeless veterans, homeless people, period, will always be here until the system is fixed. My name is Yvette Jones Swanson. I am a national veterans housing. Let me start over because I just gave myself this title. I love it so much. Veterans housing homeless advocate and consultant nationwide. That goes first. Think about it. It's federal money and it's nationwide. We have veterans who are nationwide and we can utilize that federal money. I was working with a captain I think she lives in California, but her property is in Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, a 4-bedroom home. And how I know the system is broken, that is slow moving because it's slow moving here in Chicago. But then I found out in Texas, it's even slower moving there. Out of, I believe there were 9 SSVF organizations. Oh, we contacted all and nobody knew what to do with this property. Nobody. It's a property, 4 bedrooms, 2 full baths. She wanted an agency to take it because there's a need for transitional housing, 2 veterans to a room. Nobody said anything. Crickets. Okay, let's switch gears and do HUD VASH. I went to the Dallas Fort Worth community of MRPs, that's military relocation professionals. Everybody wanted to sell the house. Crickets when it came to housing a homeless veteran using HUD VASH. Crickets. So that's why I'm going to do this master class because there is no need for a nation of us to not know how to utilize the services to assist homeless veterans. Again, I want to thank y'all for watching. My name is Yvette Jones Swanson. You can find me on Amazon. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me all over the place. Just look for me and get in touch with me for services. I want to thank you all for watching. God bless you and go in peace.
Intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Good afternoon, veterans across America. I am Treasure Owens, and this is our third episode where we're bringing on Black veteran entrepreneurs and corporate career holders across the country. We're going to be talking a little bit about personal and professional development topics, And today I'm on here with Kwame Crawford, one of my friends. He's a 7-year Navy veteran. He's a HBCU grad, the prestigious Howard to be exact. And he is currently getting his master's in public policy from the University of Illinois, Chicago. And he's a board member of the Salvation Army. Kwame does a lot. He's worked with the Veterans Treatment Court as an advisor. He's also currently the Deputy Director of Veterans Affairs for Cook County. So we are going to hear a little bit more about him, his career, what got him into the Veterans Treatment Court, and just really deep diving into some of the questions that I have seen on the internet, and just having conversations with fellow veterans about the Veterans Treatment Court as well as the Department of Veteran Affairs. So we're going to be bringing up a couple of those topics towards him, and hopefully he can answer some of our questions, and we can just have a really thought-provoking conversation. So Kwame is actually in Ghana right now. So the connection's a little bit spotty. So I'm not sure if he's going to be able to hop back in. What I can try to do, the most that I could probably try to do right now is like FaceTime him or something. But yeah, so let me see actually. Yeah, so well, some of the topics that we were gonna really talk about today, with Kwame, again, we're just covering some of the Veteran Assistance Commission, which it's a treatment court. I mean, not the Veterans Assistance Commission, I'm sorry, the Veterans Treatment Court, which covers justice impacted veterans who are currently facing mental health challenges as well as substance abuse challenges. So it's a really important part of the Department of Justice system. And I think that, it's a really important topic that we kind of cover today, because there's a couple of ways to get involved. I will say that you can be a mentor if you're looking to find more ways to get involved within the veteran community, or if you're just looking for more ways to serve the veteran community, or if it's just something that you most likely resonate with. Maybe you went through UCMJ, or any type of legal actions within the military or even on the civilian side, and you just want to help navigate others through that process. Some ways that I've seen online to get involved is just reaching out to the mentor coordinator of that program. So that's one way to get involved. And if you need those resources, we wanted to talk a little bit about like where to find those resources. So it's really a quick Google search to see like, what that looks like for your area. Because from my understanding is if you are justice impacted in a specific area, you have to go to the Veterans Treatment Court in that area. So like if you are, in the jurisdiction of Atlanta, you're not going to go through the Veterans Treatment Court in Illinois like that. It just doesn't work that way. But those are some ways to get involved there. But some questions that we had for him, I really want to see if we can get him on here. Yeah, like let me try to FaceTime him, y'all. I really want you guys to hear from him because Kwame is a exceptional person, and I think that we can learn a lot from him today. So let's see. All right, it's ringing. It's ringing. Let's see. I pray. Ah, God, don't fail me now. Come on, sir. Ah. Okay. So until we get him on the phone, um, let's see what else we can cover in the meantime. So I told you some ways that you guys can either get involved or seek assistance from the court. Definitely wanted to talk to him more about his just the things that inspired him to get into those roles, which I think is super important to talk about. Um, we experienced some of the same things in the military, and so hopefully we can have these conversations. Hey, I am here. I'm going to put my phone up to the mic just so that we can hear you from here. But hopefully that works out. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect. Hey, thanks so much for being patient with me. As you know, I'm traveling, and so it's the signal is just it is what it is.
No worries, no worries. I've seen a couple of your posts online. I saw that you were in some type of construction site. Are you building over there?
Yeah, my brother and I are kind of building a house right now in eastern region of Ghana. So yeah, just been through the last 3 weeks, just getting reacclimated to what's going on here and trying to figure out things on the ground.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to see what the end result looks like. Definitely snap some pictures, keep us updated on social media. Are you cool with sharing your social media on here?
Uh, Typically I don't, but for you, yeah, you can follow me on X at Kwame Crawford or Instagram at KWAMITSU_, which is Kwame, or LinkedIn at Kwame.K.Crawford.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So in the beginning, I did try to do you some justice as far as all of your involvements, but you are super involved in the community. Your work is incredibly impactful. So I hope I did you justice. I don't know if you were able to hear me, but I did want to dive into the Veterans Treatment Court. I already brought it to their attention, that it affects, those who are just it is for those veterans who are just as impacted but experiencing mental health and substance abuse as some underlying issues as far as like why they got in a situation, I would say. But I wanted to know a little bit more about, you know, your work, your role there as an advisor, as well as what inspired you to start working with the Veterans Treatment Court.
Well, thanks for even asking, Treasure. Candidly, so I served the United States Navy for about 4 years and received a general discharge after unknowingly ingesting THC. And so, as any veteran knows, that is a career-ending sentence. But there is life after service. And so, can you hear me? Okay?
I can.
Okay, and so that's a life. That's a career-ending sentence, but there is life after service. Many veterans who leave uniform in either general or honorable conditions, OTH other than honorable or dishonorable conditions, typically are not eligible for their veterans benefits by the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Were you?
And so I recently became a veteran as of October 2022, but unlike most veterans, they're not eligible for their benefits. And so without the resources, access to mental health, access to, some of those financial resources or even other state or local resources, a lot of veterans end up turning to crimes with desperation while they're figuring out how to adjust to the civilian world. And so, mental health and addiction challenges come into play for some, and they wind up in the Veterans Treatment Court, which is, as you know, in each county across the and run by their local jurisdictions. So I saw myself as someone who this could happen to really anyone. And when we raise our right hand, we swear an oath to serve the nation, but also to support each other. And so for me, this is just another way for me to continue my service to the warfighter is helping them post their service. So that's kind of why I joined the Veterans Treatment Court and wanted to, bring my skill set to connecting people, being a bridge builder, to helping veterans in Cook County, the second largest county in the nation, kind of get resources that they need to survive.
Wow, I really commend you for your work. What I will say is I kind of connect to that as well. I would say to a degree. Now, I did get out honorably, and I left on a medical discharge. But what I will say is one of the conversations that I actually had with one of my NCOs on my way out the door, I was telling him, I was like, look, you guys need to take me out of the slot that I'm in, because I was the NCO IC of the S2. And I was like, I'm not in a mental space to be a leader for someone else at this time. Like, I am literally in survival mode. I don't know what I'm going to do next. And so, I mean, I could have got arrested for sleeping in my car, you know what I mean, during those time periods where I was down bad. So what I will say is that I commend you for your work. I'm glad that this is um, a resource that's out there available to veterans. And I don't think that enough people know about it. So I'm glad that we're able to kind of have that conversation here and talk about it. But what I will say is something that I noticed is that I don't think that the mentorship program in the Cook County Veterans Treatment Court is there anymore, if I'm not mistaken. I did want to know, just based off of that situation, what opportunities and practices do you think would help to better support the veterans who are going through this process? And how do these current existing policies that take away those resources, such as the mentorship, which I think is a really big proponent of this program, how does that hinder the effectiveness of the restorative justice for these veterans going through this situation?
So two things there. First, I will say that veterans, any veteran who's interested in getting involved in the Veterans Treatment Court, anywhere they are in the continental United States, can reach out to their local court and say, hey, I'm a veteran and I understand what it means to serve, and I want to get involved and help fellow veterans kind of find their way. It's a pro bono initiative, and there's likely a court there. But there are many barriers to in the veterans world, right? Finances is one of them, and so for many courts around the country, many of those courts, the mentor coordinators and the mentors themselves are pro bono roles, and so natural restrictions typically come from veterans who are either of the same age or conflict, who want to render a hand of support to a fellow veteran. Just having interest in supporting someone for free and helping them find their way past the stigmas that we as veterans have faced on our own, as we came out of uniform, is one of the main and concerns.
Wait, one moment, because we kind of lost you at when you said one of the main. Can you repeat what you were going to say?
Oh, sure. One of the main barriers is finding veterans willing to donate their time, connect with local court, and help veterans who are in the justice system. But another main barrier to this is funding at the local and state and federal levels for the Veterans Treatment Court. Bureau of Justice at the DOJ is phenomenal in providing to support some of these courts, the local level. However, for many jurisdictions around the country, funding is just, it may or may not be there at the state level. So we should be having these conversations in our state capitals and in our local council meetings as well about how to provide funding for restorative justice courts, treatment court, mental health, and otherwise. That would provide access to these services that bring the community together, not just at the local level, but the state and the federal come to these courtrooms. We should really be talking about how to fund all these things.
So I actually had another question for you as well, but this wasn't necessarily directed towards the Veterans Treatment Court. It was more so directed towards your current position as Deputy Director of the Veterans Affairs for Cook County government. I'm noticing that funding is just like the biggest hindrance, I would say, in the veterans community. I'm not sure where we can like. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of give you some context to like a part of where this question came from, but also like some of the things that I've been reading online. Um, so as far as like where I stand, I remember when I was in North Carolina, I was like thinking about the Black Veterans Expo, which is, something that we did in June recently. And so when I was kind of gearing up towards this, I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't have necessarily a name behind it or anything like that. So I was like, oh yeah, we could do a pop-up at my National Guard unit and my armory. And then, we can just kind of like build from there. And I was like, when we do it, we can raise funds and we could give it to local armories and things like that, and then they were like, no, you can't put like you just can't donate to certain organizations and stuff like that. Like I noticed that was a thing. So even when it comes to funding, it's like we can't even help in that regard, or it seems like we can't help. And I know, like, the funding situation is kind of different for the different organizations. Like the DoD is supported by the National Defense Authorization Act. I believe that the Department of Veteran Affairs is covered by um, what is it, Appropriation Committee, and what is it like at what is it like for the Cook County level? That's for the Cook County Board, correct? They are the ones who give the funding.
Right. So funding at each level is different. You're right. And so at the county level, the funding is determined by the Cook County Board. I guess what was your specific question? I'm sorry, maybe I missed that one.
No, I mean, I really just wanted to know like how that process worked in the first place to see if this question even, I would say, particularly made sense. But I kind of wrote it down and I'll kind of read off the paper. So some of the things that I've been seeing online is that people are saying that partisan politics are preventing funding for the VA, which is impacting, of course, the quality of care for our fellow veterans. But I would say, what structural changes or policy changes do you think could break through this political impasse and really just secure consistent and adequate funding for veterans? Because obviously, if we can't donate, if we can't, help out with the funding, like how are we, like, what's our best move? Our best move would be going the political way, but it seems like the political way has its own barriers. So I just wanted to know like um how we can help you do your job, how we can continue to help you and support you in this role, how we can get more funding into the VA and just stop these programs from being defunded, essentially is where I was going with this.
Okay. Well, sure.
Hold on, it's a little bit unstable. It's better.
Okay, let me just say, I am, as of last month, the former Deputy Director of Veterans Affairs for Cook County Government, because I believe in serving the people, and I think we in Cook County need a level of funding that really honors the amount of veterans that we have in the second largest county in the nation. And so our counterparts in LA have over $2 million in their Department of Veterans Affairs and over 70 employees. And I hope that one day Cook County government really believes in veterans enough to mirror that or exceed that limit. But as it pertains to funding, we need a substantial amount of money to provide veteran programming at the county level. And so it really is on the Cook County Board of Commissioners and the Cook County Board to provide that funding from the administrative officers, the Cook County Administrative Officers Administrative Office, to find the funding required to truly serve the needs of the over 175,000 veterans in Cook County. In terms of at the federal level, as you mentioned, the U.S. Department of Veterans. Can you hear me?
I can. It's still like a little peachy, but it's fine.
I'm sorry. We're working in developing world challenges now, but as you mentioned, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is funded by a congressional letter of appropriation that goes to the Congressional the Appropriations Committee. And so what it would really take in order to expand veteran services is members of Congress would have to do a congressional budget state to show how much money is needed in order to expand or include additional services that may not already be provided at the VA level in order for the Department of Veterans Affairs to even have those services expanded. And so, when you talk about the local level, you have to go to your city council meetings, you have to go to your county board or commissioner meetings, your folder meetings. And at the federal level, you have to reach out to your federal elected officials and let them know what explicitly is needed in that issue area, and provide hard data numbers for impact and help quantify the cost for that request. And so, at the that just depends on the state, but it's really a three-tiered approach. It requires veterans and constituents to get involved and to really connect with their elected officials and stay with them beyond election day, stay connected beyond election day, and stay connected with them beyond, a certain bill being passed or a certain act being passed through the legislature. It really takes people just engaged consistently.
Okay. So really, the bulk of what I got from that is that this is a fight that is it's going to be a long while. It's not about I guess winning the battle. The battles don't necessarily win the war. You have to keep at it, is essentially what I'd say. Is what I got from that. What I will do is continue to attend like the Veterans Assistance Commission of Cook County's events and stuff like that. And I guess like that's something that you guys can do to continue to get involved and just like make sure that these resources that we do have available to us don't continue to go away. Continuing to be actively involved, reaching out to, your local aldermen, your local mayors, just everybody involved in the political process. And like you said, just not like leaving it off at the table once a bill is passed, like actually keeping up with what's going on around you and what's on the table, I would say. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Candidly, I want to say that government can't do it all. And so you asked what it takes to get the funding. Some of these government initiatives, you cannot take money from the outside. And what it requires is really, veteran nonprofits and different NGOs to come together and to pick up the tab and say, hey, we want to work with these folks. We want to work with veterans. We want to fill the gap between Department of Justice funding, veteran treatment courts, and I don't know, big warriors. They want to partner with you all to provide some of these resources. For instance, it really takes a collaborative effort from the community, from the private sector, putting their money together and their networks together to maybe put on a justice impacted veterans employment seminar to help justice impacted veterans with nonviolent offenses figure out how to re-enter into the community.
Yeah.
All of the things that we talk about, idealistically, in business and corporate social responsibility and in, kind of at our government roundtables, it takes us actually doing that. And it really takes the electorate to say, hey, that's what we want. That's what we need. And I know election day is 11 months away, but what are we doing today? Right?
Agree. Wait, Kwame. So we are running out of time, but I do thoroughly appreciate that answer. And yeah, get your nonprofits off the ground. Definitely, we all have to get involved in this process. But Kwame, we are running out of time. I know that we had an issue with the connection issues, but I really, truly appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with us. I think that this was a very intellectual conversation, and I'm hoping that those who want to get involved and want to continue to support the veteran community have heard it from us, and are just continuing to listen to our voices as we continue to speak up about what we'd like to see in the future. So thank you guys for tuning in. Kwame, thank you for coming in with your spotty connection on FaceTime. I will talk to you guys in 1 month. I'll see you guys soon. Please keep up with us on social media. All right. Thanks.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Hi, I'm U.S. Army National Guard veteran Sean Claiborne, and welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable for Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness and Hispanic Heritage Month. And with us today is Rochelle Crump. She's a U.S. Army veteran and founder of NWVU. That's a National Women's Veterans United. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more of our content. And make sure that you also leave comments on what you want to hear on America's Heroes Group. How you doing, Rochelle?
I'm fine. And you?
Good, good. Long time no see.
I know. I mean, the heat has got me really like thinking about the winter at this time. You know, usually I'm like really not wanting to have winter, but right now I'm feeling I need some air.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So what have you guys been doing over at NWVU this past summer?
Well, we've been just doing a whole lot of things, a lot of, like navigating with people and, holding events. And we have a nice one coming up, and we're looking forward to that on Saturday, this coming Saturday on September the 21st. From 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we're having our stand down. Every year we have a stand down for military women veterans. This year, we're really focusing on reservists and also the National Guard women. Because as you know, National Guard really don't get a lot of benefits while they're serving in the,
I know that well.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what that's like. And then when you come home, unless you do your 6 years and get your certificate of eligibility for your home, unless you have an injury or something like that, there's really not more for you from them other than your retirement, unless you had an accident or injury or something like that in the service. And then, you're entitled to have them consider, for disability benefits. But these young women basically are going into the reserves and the National Guard. And, a couple of weeks ago, we had quite a few of the FRG, the Family Readiness Group, to contact us because they had several women veterans that were homeless. They're not veterans yet, but, wearing the uniform and homeless, and that's just such a crime in itself, and for different reasons. But, we're focusing on them so that we can kind of steer them along the way because they're like 18, 19, 20 years old, and they need that, that cover from the outside as opposed to the inside, And the first thing I tell them is read the regulations. Take your time and read the regulations so you can see what it is you can do, what you can't do, how to conduct yourself. All of those things matter, how to make sure. And they had training already, but you know how that goes. When you're on training or in training, then that's good. When you get out and you're out of training and now you're just drilling, it becomes a whole different scenario, if you will. So we want to be able to just stand by them and help them. We're going to have, like I said, a big stand down. We're going to have a breakfast for them, lunch, ice cream social. We're going to do some activities with them. Do you know her? And that's to have them to get to know other people, other women. We're going to have a few vendors there. We're going to have table talk, and that's where we give them some questions and ask their opinion on them. We may talk about the VA. We may talk about, just in general relationships. We might talk about different things like that. And we're going to have a fun also, too. We're going to talk about feelings, how to manage your feelings. This, as you know, is still Suicide Prevention Month. And so, a lot of times you don't know what's going on with people unless you can have that training, so that you know what to be on the lookout for, how people isolate, how they start dressing, how they start talking. It's all kinds of cues that you get that people just don't really understand unless they've had some form of training. And a lot of times they miss the mark on that, unfortunately.
Work on it themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, we're going to have, we have a fun game that we're going to play. We have found some pillows pretty much that has all of those feelings on them, so we're going to let them tell us how they're feeling. We have a pillow for each one. And then we also invited Dr. Renee Dickerson. She's a veteran too, Air Force veteran, and she got her own business, and we're looking forward to her coming out to actually talk about those feelings and how to manage them, and she's doing fairly well. She's got a couple of books out. She's got actually a facility now where she talks about her service matters, and it makes just all the sense in the world. I feel so good about it because she's a part of us. It's a little different when, and nothing, and no offense to those who haven't served, but sometimes, it's just so much better when you can kind of relate with somebody who's been there and done the same thing. It's called like-minded, if you will.
I think that experience makes a big difference because just like with anything else, if you've gone through something, it's easier to kind of connect with someone if you've had similar experiences. And there's nothing really like being in the military. It doesn't matter oftentimes even the branch or even what you did in military. It's still there's a common thread in the experience that military veterans all share.
Absolutely. And that makes us so close to each other. It's the kind of conversations that we can have with each other that you couldn't have with someone who hasn't been there. And it just means the world to them to know that they have someone that they can entrust into, telling them something and asking their opinion on. They feel better talking to someone who they know has been there. It just makes all the sense in the world. It's almost like a doctor. A doctor's not going to talk to somebody who basically hasn't, been in the training of medical. They're trying to teach you stuff, but you're going to hold a conversation with them unless you're, really a student. You go and look things up and you can, kind of like correlate with that person and they understand what you're asking, and it makes just a big difference. So, and with that, we want to make sure that we give them some gift bags. They like to get giveaways. So we're going to have that for them. We're going to give them a free gift card and a lot of other things that they'll be able to kind of like just share with each other. It's going to be, like I said, from 10 to 3 o'clock. So that's a long time for people to kind of get together, enough time for them basically to get together, have a good conversation, and then just, fraternize with each other because, you were in the same place. A lot of them are going to find out that they served with the same person, and I love those type of reunions. And that happened before, and the lady looked at her, and when she saw her, she's like, I know her. And she just broke down in tears, and she said, she saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah. And we got a picture of them hugging, it was just really just something for all of us to see and know that, there are so many out here who have not yet experienced that, but look forward to it. I know I had a friend too from the military and ran into her at Montford Point, at the facility. And she passed since that time. And that made me so sad, very sad, because she was the same age as me, and I thought she was in good health. And, come to find out she had a lot of stuff going on. But see, people don't tell you everything, That's why we have those vendors there that can kind of talk to them. That's why we've had the VA mobile unit to come out and to basically, women can go and have a conversation with them, get the blood pressure taken and things like that, get, information from them for different entities about the medical parts that they need to be aware of, in addition to the fact that we have been doing webinars pretty much. We have a medical doctor that does the presentation. He also writes the grant for us, which is a great thing, So, and he's been, talking about those illnesses, breast cancer awareness, so many of them, I can't even pronounce the name of them, but you know, he goes out of his way to make sure that the community is aware of all of these things that we are not aware of.
And one thing I think is really important too, you touched on that cancer. I think for veterans, particularly those coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, getting cancer screenings, it's so important. I mean, there's all these different types of sarcomas and carcinomas and all kinds of different things that veterans are coming down with at young ages because they were exposed to these toxic exposures overseas.
Yes. And, you know, he did one of his sessions and he spoke about the colonoscopy that people should have, you know, that they should take. So one of the members, she indicated that her doctor told her that she didn't need to have the colonoscopy. Now, she had cancer and everything. And, you know, she said that you didn't need it. He said, well, did you have it before? She said, no, I've never had one before. He said, you need to get a second opinion on that. And you need to make sure that, you know, they are aware of all the history of your, you know, your cancer and stuff like that. So she did that. She followed up. The patient advocate helped her, you know, to talk to them. And come to find out, when they did the colonoscopy, they found polyps.
Wow.
To be removed.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what we were talking about earlier. I mean, this makes a big difference when you have veterans helping other veterans. If you don't have that military experience, you're not thinking about all the weird stuff that happens to veterans' bodies when they come back from being deployed, if they've been exposed to toxic exposures, or if they've had any kind of certain type of injuries while they were serving.
Yeah, and so, you know, when we look at things like that, it's just an eye opener to us all to get a second opinion, because some people just go by what they hear, you know, and it's not always good, you know, it's not always bad, but it's always not good. And that's what you look for. So, you know, with that being said, we've been doing a lot of, you know, trying to make sure that women veterans are all ready, you know, for whatever comes with, you know, those illnesses that they have, you know, talking to them about those issues and how we can best help them with different programs, you know. And then, you know, we make sure that they understand that they're not out here alone. That's the most important thing. And we've gotten that, you know, we were putting them up in hotels and things like that for those who cannot find, you know, proper housing and shelter. As you know, the shelters are still closed, not closed, but they're full. And so when you think about it, you know, what does it look like that they have to sleep at the VA? What does that really look like? Wow. You know, so
and how do women, especially if they have children, how do they adapt to some of the shelters that are out there? Because from my understanding, oftentimes if you have older kids, you can't have like a boy over 16 with you, and sometimes the mothers get separate from the children.
It's not 16, it's more than that.
Oh, wow.
Male, yeah. And so that's the reason why several of them, because they had a female and a male child, you know, they just walked away, you know, because they are not going to send their child on that deck, if you will, with all those strangers and people who, you know, come from different places, you know, which includes, you know, let's just say it, you know, prison. You know, it's a lot of that, because that's
people with problems, drug issues, you know, people that have, you know, records and things like that. Yeah, it can be dangerous for a child.
Very much so.
Yeah. So how do you get funding for all the things that you do, the programs that you do?
Well, you know what, we balance our budget, if you say that, because what we did was we had grants before from the Trinkle Davis Foundation. And, you know, they gave us a healthy one, and we were stewards over that money. You know, we kept that money for a long time. We continued to fundraise. We continued to make pledges with those other, you know, grants that we got were for the medical programs that we, you know, like I said, do the webinars for, and that's in person and, you know, online. And then, you know, we just kind of like look for donations, you know, mostly donations and stuff. And we get some help from the United Relief Foundation also. They sponsor some of our programs. We have a Veterans Day coming up, and we're going to do a Veterans Day program also. And the host of that is going to be NWVU and the Relief Foundation. You know, they took a liking to us and they understand what we do. They help give us supplies so that we can give us supplies to the families that need them for the kids for school. And so, we do that with the gift cards because sometimes, the evictions that people are going through, we've had several of them for women, and then they left without nothing. They were denied, like, because they got put out, then they weren't able to get the mail and all that kind of stuff before the eviction stuff started. One of them was in the hospital when she got evicted.
Explain to us a little bit more about the evictions.
Yeah, the
What
eviction
exactly happened with that?
she did not pay her rent. She needed to pay her rent, but unfortunately she wasn't making that much money. One of them was waiting on her benefits to actually kick in. She had been awarded the statement that she was going to get it, but then, it takes time for them to do the final processing and stuff. So, and she didn't get that mercy, if you will, that they would pay afterwards, for all that time that she had been there, which was part of that with the when we all had to stay in the house, when we were all put on punishment.
What's one of the main reasons? This is happening a lot. Why is it that a lot of the females are getting evicted? Like, what's the holdup with the payments and things like that?
They have a backlog, a tremendous backlog, tremendous. And so with that being said, you get nothing until it is all solidified and done. You get nothing until it comes to you in your bank. And unfortunately, it is like a double. When they did that pack, that created a whole nother process for them too. And people are leaving the VA. I read that a couple of months ago, probably been about 6 months since I read that. A lot of the VA people were walking away. They wanted to look for other jobs. Too much pressure. And then come to think of it, remember that some of them are service members too. Some of them are still serving. Some of them are actually, recipients of those benefits also.
Why do you think that is? Do you think the military, because this is something we've talked about before in our show.
Yes.
First it was wait times to get veterans medical care. Now we're talking about, people leaving the VA, they're understaffed. We know the VA hospitals are definitely understaffed, not enough nurses, things like that. We talked about pay maybe should be better, especially with nurses and people in the medical profession, because it doesn't even compete with what you get in the private sector. But what are some of the other stresses that people are getting? Why is it such a stressful job to be working in the VA system?
They put pressure on them, pressure to, like, codes that they have for them to be able to complete a claim in so many days or so many, like that. So a lot of that stuff takes more than that, And so if in fact, they don't meet those timelines, then, that's another story. Now they're not doing their job right, So
is the VA, do you think the VA is outdated? Do they need to modernize to get better technology, speed up the processes, or take away some of all the steps and the tasks they have to do?
Well, I would say, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. When I worked for the VA, I worked there for 23 years. So when I worked for the VA, they taught us every benefit and how to basically render them to the veterans, right? So then what they did was they took away all of those from the regional office in our state. So now you're going to different places for your home loan. You're going different places for your pension. You're going different places for your, your compensation and stuff like that, for burial. That just made no sense. Every state should have basically been handling their own population of veterans, and they could have hired from there. Each state should have been hiring their own people. They should have been doing their own, because this has not made sense for all of everybody's cases to be stacked up in the same places like they had them when they were trying to figure out Agent Orange. When Agent Orange was trying to be figured out, they had them stacked up in rooms and stuff like that until they could figure it out. Well, that shouldn't be the case now. They have more people that they could have hired and did that work in-house. It just didn't make sense to me, And it would have been easier for people to get more information about what do you need instead of you have to send it here, even though they're working on a computer. Everybody doesn't work on the computer. So now you got to get help on a computer, all of that stuff, it just makes a whole lot of nonsense, and when it don't make sense, it's nonsense, So we have to try to help them in some kind of ways when they're, even though you're not accredited, you have to be accredited to help them. You can still help them by, number one, making sure the person that they're getting information from is accredited or have some knowledge of things that they need to take with them, to complete their claims, to make sure that they don't have all this running around. You don't have this and that, and it's a letter here and a letter there, And I know the VA has made a lot of changes for the good. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to just say they all bad, because when you say somebody is bad, it's got to be some good with them too. And there is some good with them. You do have some caring veterans there and others that basically, want to help and they want to do their best, but they're tired. You look at it, anybody else who works all day and they got small people there, not enough people to help work, and you're doing the best that you can, you get tired at some point in time. Some people need their vacations. They got family issues. They got, they're human like anybody else. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that, listening out to all of the things that they're doing, like from the DAV, you'll see a lot of things from them. They're coming up with more programs and stuff. And I'm saying to myself, oh, I'm glad they're trying to get to dinner. Oh, I'm glad they're trying to help with this. But the problem is this: what about the processing part? Here we go again with a whole nother entity of things they need to do. And it's unfortunate. So it's like the horse beating, beating its tail, if you will,
No, on your banner, you have "Not the Veteran's Wife."
Absolutely.
So to explain that for us, for people that don't know.
Well, that is true. I am the veteran, and I am not the veteran's wife. So and we're pushing that with all of the women, to be standing up to let people know that I serve too. Everywhere I go, I let them know I serve too. I always wear something on me that shows that I serve too, because we have been ignored long enough. We have been dismissed too much, and we have been forgotten forever, so we want to make sure that they understand that we are out here too. We need services as well, and we want to help them most of all, because that's why our organization actually was created. We're the only women veteran center in the state of Illinois. We're very proud of it, and we hope that when these women come for the first time for the stand down, they will feel at home. They will feel that they have a friend with our organization. They don't necessarily have to be a member. If they want to be a member, they can. If they don't, that's fine too, because all we want to do is help them along the way, educate them on the things that they may not know about and that they should know about, and then make sure that they're happy and whole. We want to make sure that they know we're here for that purpose. So
how do people get a hold of National Women's Veterans United?
And thank you for asking that. So we have a new website too. Our website is One Voice, One Vision I done forgot it already. One vision, one voice, one vision. And
Google One Voice, One Vision.
It's .org. So
.org,
it's .org. And we keeping the other one. We're going to have two of them. So we have one that's updated, and then they can also contact us at 872-731-2150. They can email us at nwvu.org@gmail.com. And, we want to give a shout out to the National Association of Black Military Women, who are actually having their convention in Chicago, starting on the 18th up until the 21st. I'll be one of their speakers. And you know what? It's a lot to be said. And, when you see a lot of women coming, we are better together. And we have to get that message to them. Everybody has a little organization or something like that. We still need to collaborate together to make sure that we are covering all the states, and that women can basically start getting together and look out for each other. We have been, like I said, forgotten a long time, but we are not going back. Okay, we are not going back.
So when's the event? When is the upcoming convention?
Our convention, I'm glad you asked. We're having our actually 20th anniversary next year, March the 22nd of 2025. And we look forward for that because we have so much to tell people about what we do, what we did, why we did it, and who we do it for 20 years. Marriages don't last that long. So I'm just saying, with a bunch of women who basically have been through a lot. They've been through a lot. And some will, may not be able to, you don't want to trigger people also with always talking about your service and stuff like that. But we want to make sure that they get that help that they need. And that's important. So, we encourage people that when you see webinars that you can get on to tell you about suicide and things like that, join them so you can be educated about the things that are right there in your community. The people who basically served you, this country. Let's make sure that we're there for them. And that's the only way we can do that, by being educated about the things that they need. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it.
So your convention's in March. When's the stand down?
Our stand down is this coming Saturday, the 21st of September. At 10 a.m. until 3 o'clock. It will be held at our facility at the National Women Veterans United Sergeant Simone Robinson Military Women Veterans Center. And we are one of the first, or I would say, the first in the county or state, the first in the state that named our facility after a fallen soldier. Simone was 21 years old. She left behind a daughter and her grieving family. And we've been in contact with that family all this time. Her daughter now is 17, going on 18. And, we want to just continue to make sure that family and the service that Simone had does not be forgotten. We want to make.
What's that address to your headquarters?
Say it again.
What's the address to your headquarters?
Our address is 8620 South Pulaski Road, Chicago, Illinois, 60652. And our hours, our best days are on Tuesday. All other days are pretty much, except for the second Saturday of the month. People can walk in on that day, and also they can set up an appointment if they just want to come and visit. We put some things out so that we can take.
Starting to fade out a little bit.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's lose your audio. We're out of time now, so we'll make sure that you guys go out and support National Women's Veterans United. Next Saturday, the 21st, is going to be the stand down at their facility. And then also don't forget as well to check out their website. That's nwvu.org. And then what's the new one again? The new website?
The new website is One Voice, One Vision. That's it.
.org.
One Voice, One Vision.
Thanks a lot, Rochelle. Thanks for coming back.
All right. Thank you. Good to see you.
See you next time.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran.
So hi, I'm U.S. Army National Guard veteran Sean Claiborne, and welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable for Wednesday, September 18, 2024. September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness and Hispanic Heritage Month. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and also comment, make some comments on our website. You can see us at America's Heroes Group. .org, or you can see us at americashg.org, or just email us at info@americasheroesgroup.gmail.com. So how you guys doing today? We have Gigi Crowder. She's the executive director of NAMI Contra Costa in California. NAMI is a National Alliance of Mental Health Illness, an advocacy group founded by family members of people with mental illness. And she brought us a wonderful guest. That's Tan Hall, the mother of Miles Hall. We're going to tell his story and find out what this is all about and how we can help each other get through issues when it comes to mental health and also trying to get mental healing. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Okay.
Sunday. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Gigi, I'm gonna let you give us some more information about Tan. Tell us, give her a brief introduction and tell us how you met her.
Okay, so at NAMI CC, we offer trainings, educational courses for families, and Tan, recognizing her loving, precious son, Miles, lived with a mental health challenge. She took our family to family course so she could position herself to better support him. Sadly, in June of 2019, I got a phone call from Tan letting me know her loving and precious son, Miles, had actually been killed by law enforcement after she was seeking support while he was experiencing a mental health crisis. And so we gathered a group of individuals together. We called them the Friends of Alexis Scott and Tan Hall, and we started advocating for support so that we could make sure this never happened again to another individual.
Tan, that's so heartbreaking to hear that your son was taken in such a way. Can you add some more details as to how you felt and what was the circumstances? What type of struggles was your son going through his mental health issues?
Yeah. No, thank you, and thank you for having me on today to talk more about my son Miles and our experiences with him which he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So with schizophrenia, you have delusions and hallucinations. But Miles, he was 23 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. He was just a kind person. He was just like someone who'd walk in the room and just light it up with his smile. He was just very gentle. So I just want to, always put that out there that he was just a really great person and a kid. But he did struggle with mental health challenges. And we noticed that because he was having delusions and hallucinations when he was about 20 years old, and wasn't sure quite what to do with that because I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, so I had some background. But like Gigi said, I did go to NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. They had the classes. That was helpful. And one thing they did say is, let your local law enforcement know about your child, your loved one, just so they're aware that he was struggling. So I did that. And, there's obviously in our community with police, that's not, we don't always go to police, right, for help. But with Miles and mental illness, it's a very, very reactive system. So you have to have certain criteria. It has to be like danger to self, danger to others, but gravely ill. And Miles, with his hallucinations and delusions, he thought he was Jesus and started knocking on doors in our neighborhood. We live in a very white neighborhood. So that's kind of how the reasons that I wanted to make sure police knew who he was is because he was knocking on doors thinking he's Jesus. And I wanted to make sure that my neighbors knew who he was also, and also the law enforcement. So that's kind of how we got connected to NAMI. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, it's a very reactive system. So we couldn't get help. We couldn't find him someone who would come to the house to give us support. Also, my son didn't want it and didn't understand he was sick. So he had like a different type of, it's very common with people who have schizophrenia. It's called agnosocia. So it's like you don't understand that you even have anything going on. You think everything's normal. So about 40% of people with schizophrenia have that. So it's even more dangerous, So unfortunately, after probably 2 years of working with police and trying to get him help, and when I say police, it was like, they had like a mental health officer that they tried to come and help, give him resources. And when we needed help the most, when we needed someone to come, and there was no one to come. Mm-hmm. And that's why the day before Miles was killed, we had reached out to the non-emergency line just to let them know Miles was having some hallucinations, knocking on doors again. And they didn't give us any resources. They didn't say, hey, there's a mobile crisis unit. Hey, there's this, there's that, because there wasn't any. Yeah.
Wow.
So the next day, Miles is in a full-blown mental health emergency. And then within, police are called, and within probably 30 seconds, instead of getting help to de-escalating the situation, he was shot 4 times, and he ended up dying about 15 minutes later.
I'm so sorry to hear that. So that's such a heartbreaking story. And it's aggravating because this is all too common story with African Americans. I actually looked up, I was doing another show actually. And what I discovered was one of the leading causes for African Americans, this is actually from the CDC. The CDC reported that there is actually the 5th leading cause of death for Black men is legal interventions and homicides. Legal interventions meaning incidents with the police, but it's also combined with homicides. About 5% of Blacks have been affected by this. When it's less than 1%, a fraction of a percent for whites. There was actually more Black people fell into that category for death than whites did between 2022 and 2024. I thought that was pretty ironic, being that, we're only 14% of the population, 12% to 14% roughly. So you have a foundation. You decided to take this and actually try to get something positive out of, his life or in his loss, and through a foundation. Tell us more about the foundation and how you came up with that, how you developed it, and what you guys work on.
Yeah. So, but as you mentioned, the statistics are staggering, right? And it's so dangerous for our Black boys, our Black people, to have to rely on the police. And that's exactly what I wanted to make sure other people did not have to do, is that the day I called before, like, why wasn't there resources? Why didn't the 911 officer have anything for us? That would have, if there was something, that would have saved my son's life. But there was nothing. There's nothing they offered. So I knew right away that we had to do something different, there had to be another number, there had to be something. So our group, and Gigi was definitely part of that. She was, instrumental in helping us and fighting with us. We door knocked to legislators and tried to see what legislator would help us. And we found one in Orinda, California, Rebecca Bauer-Cahan. And she also recognized it and said, well, if there's something else, another number, that might have helped. I was like, yeah, that would have helped. So there's a national number called 988. And I'm sure people have heard about that, the suicide prevention hotline. And that 988 is just a good number that people can remember to call. But with our situation, we needed help. We needed someone who wasn't police, who was going to come and just kind of understand the things that Miles were going through. And so in California, we were able to pass, it's called Assembly Bill AB 988, the Miles Hall Lifeline Act, Suicide Prevention. And what that is that every county in California now has to have a mobile crisis unit. So it's mandated. It's mandated by the state. And that has to happen within so many years from now. And then also with our activism and Miles's death, because there was nothing for us. There was nothing to help us. I had been trying for years to get Miles some type of help, and there was nothing for us. So in our county, again, because the advocacy is we went to the board of supervisors, and we asked them to have a mobile crisis unit, something that would have saved Miles the day before. So they were able to first start a pilot program. It was going to be it started off small, and then now it's a pilot program that is that it includes a family member. It includes someone who's been experiencing, like a peer who has experienced mental health challenges, and then a mental health professional. And then I think Gigi also, I mean, she has a lot of experience in this as well. I don't know, Gigi, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, because of the cries, no matter what individuals went to the Board of Supervisors to speak to, they ended their statement with, and we need a program, a non-police response program for those living with mental illness. And we need to name it after that young kid, Miles Hall, who was killed in Walnut Creek. So whatever they were there for, so the advocacy part was really essential. And so the county launched about a year and a half type of design team, which me and several members of the support group for Ton and the Hall family participated on. And we tried to design something that would be triage. So maybe this person just needs a family member to talk to. Maybe this person needs a peer. But most essential was the licensed clinical social workers who could make an assessment and decide whether they can go out, so that we would recognize this as a medical emergency and stop criminalizing the individuals who are the ones most harmed in these type of situations. So we had great success. I was on the Measure X Community Advisory Board, and I got on there with a mission of making sure the funding was there for such a pilot program. And they now call it the A3 program. Anyone, any place, anytime. They have to rev up their staffing to make sure that they're true to that. But great progress has been made because Ton and her family and her supporters said never again.
So Gigi, why do you think it took so long to, because we've been hearing about this, and even on our show we talked about this, where in a lot of cities, even in Chicago, they talked about getting more mental health professionals to respond to mental health crises, because we already know that a lot of the calls to the police are with individuals who may be going through some type of mental health event. We've seen this many times, with Sonia Massey just not too long ago. Why did it take so long? And then are there other states or cities around you that you're aware of that have or are trying to implement some type of mental health crisis response team?
Yeah, I used to work in Alameda County, so they already had a team, and so we leaned on to the work that they were doing, and NAMI was able to get some funding and have that subject matter expert come on to help the county. But it really took the advocacy of the Hall family and friends to press the issue in Contra Costa County. You're right, we've been hearing about the challenge. I have a long list of individuals who lost their life because law enforcement responded without the skill set to de-escalate, and sometimes without the compassion because they weaponized the skin color of the individuals, and they didn't see them as being in medical need, but they saw them as someone who was there to harm. And so that's the problem that we had, but we're changing that conversation. We're working a lot more closely with law enforcement who recognize they never should have been in the business of responding to mental health crisis unless there's imminent danger. There will be some cases where, a person is putting their life at risk or someone else and it's immediate, where we will need law enforcement. But for the most part, in other countries that we looked at, like in the UK, they never had a law enforcement response. They've always had supportive folks, and their numbers around who gets killed a lot lower, even for, people from BIPOC communities. We sadly have had more individuals after the killing of Miles. There were several more, and we're just doing our work at NAMI CC to bring attention to it and to make sure the A3 program is, much more effective in meeting the needs of the residents in Contra Costa County.
Ms. Hall, in your son's case, I hesitate to ask this question, but I think I'd be remiss not to ask this question. Was your son armed in any way when he was shot?
No, he was not. So Miles had broken a sliding glass door with a garden tool that he had, and he thought it was like his staff from God. He was carrying it to his chest. So Miles ended up in like this cul-de-sac area. It's like, 5 o'clock in the day. It's June, right? So it's beautiful out. He had plenty of space if they just gave him time and distance. Police came on the scene. Miles was holding the garden tool to his body, wasn't holding it up to do anything to anybody, because he wasn't going to do that, right? But he was running because they blocked his way, and he was running and they blocked his path, and they two officers, I think the officer shot a beanbag first, and then within 30 seconds they were shooting bullets. And that's why we need to make sure police are not the first responders. Like Gigi said, when they need to be there, yes, but not for someone in a mental health emergency who needs to be de-escalated. So there are a lot of things went wrong that day. They didn't follow their own policies and procedures, and they also didn't wait for their own mental health officer to arrive. All they needed to do was just wait and let him run by. He wasn't, like I said, he wasn't doing anything with that the garden tool. And the garden tool was something that a neighbor gave him because we have a close-knit community, and he was gardening, and they gave it to him so he could garden a little bit easier.
Wow. Do you feel that a lot of police officers themselves, people in law enforcement, also have mental health issues when they use violence, or so quick to violence? I go back to Sonia Massey's shooting, her murder. The guy was triggered. The guy that shot Sonia Massey was triggered by something.
Yeah.
It seemed to be could be very easily avoided. That could have been a situation that could have been done a whole nother way. We had another issue years ago. Unfortunately, I can't remember this gentleman's name, but the gardener, I believe, Laquan McDonald. Laquan McDonald here in Chicago was shot over a dozen times, like 16 times, because when somebody was triggered. And there was a situation that seemed to be under control until he showed up and just emptied the clip and wanted to reload and shoot again.
Yeah. And while working in Alameda County, we started looking at the fitness exams for law enforcement. And there's actually a lawsuit out from family members because I think it was at least 40% of the officers hired for the Alameda County Sheriff Department did not pass the psychological fitness exam. But they were still hired. And then we had a scandal in Contra Costa County in Antioch with racialized text messages from law enforcement. So that lends itself to the bias and the decades of complaints by African American and other BIPOC community residents who were saying we're being unfairly treated by law enforcement. I know, personally that we've had individuals who sought out our services at NAMI Contra Costa who have family members who are in law enforcement that they feel like should be getting help. Like they'll call us and say, I think he's burned out. I don't think he should be working in this field anymore. So we have to put some more standards in place so that we're not just examining officers when they join the force, but you come back and they have regular evaluations about their mental health, because let's face it, the work they do is traumatic. Mm-hmm. And if you're experiencing that kind of trauma every day from just seeing things that I certainly wouldn't want to see, you're likely gonna need to understand that you're not in the best position throughout to take it. We've often talked about how when someone does, injure someone on the force, mandatory time off, and then we need to deal with the immunity that allows individuals to feel like they can get away with it. We're just now in the last couple of years having consequences for the law enforcement rogues that take law into their own hands, versus understanding that a great police officer is one who could take an armed person in, and get him in front of the judge, not making the decision themselves about their guilt.
Another thing I wish we could invest in more with all the technology that we have. I find it hard to believe that we haven't created for law enforcement more non-lethal weapons or non-lethal measures. Things that, we have tasers that are somewhat effective sometimes. They have the bean bags, things like that. They're, maybe can incapacitate someone. But if we could invest more research into making non-lethal weapons. Because the reality is most police officers, unless you're getting into a shootout with someone, there's very few reasons why you need to fire your weapon.
Right.
I mean, if somebody's unarmed, I don't understand how if an unarmed person ends up getting shot.
Right. Well, again, we're going to go back to the color of your skin, right? And having the increased people of color are way higher risk. So again, it has to do with like making sure police aren't our first responders to mental health crisis calls. And that's why, 988 and the work we're doing as with the Miles Hall Foundation is so important, right? Because Miles is not alone. Like Gigi said, there were so many other people, unfortunately, killed after Miles in the same county. Like that should not be. You need to learn from the mistakes, right? But the problems is that for one, when the people are getting trained in the police academy, they're not getting enough training for mental health anyway, right? So we need to make sure that they are not the first responders because they do not have the training, and we get the right people who have mental health backgrounds and having other numbers to call. And that's why 988 is so important. But in California, it's even more crucial because there's a non-police response. You have a mobile crisis unit that's going to come out, and it's like a full wraparound service, right? So you have someone who's going to come and understands what those people are going through. They're going to take them to a facility or a place that they can now be on medication, be stabilized. And then they're going to make sure that when they're either released, that they're going to still get services and make sure that those people do not drop out, right? So it needs to be a wraparound service. They can't just, let these people go and then not have any other resources for them.
So thanks for coming on our show. We have to end it right there because we're running out of time. I appreciate you guys for coming on, and my condolences again, Ms. Hall. You have a great story to tell about the work you're doing with your foundation in the name of your son. I'm so happy that something is being done in your community, and I believe it's going to cause a lot of people to be saved, have their lives saved because of what you've actually implemented. And my hats are off to you, both of you guys. I appreciate you guys coming on our show.
Thank you. And then please go to our website, themileshallfoundation.org. You can see more of the work we're doing. So thank you.
Where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
U.S. Army National Guard veteran Sean Claiborne, and welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable for Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. And once again, we have with us our partner, Stephanie Collada. She's U.S. Army Reserve Sergeant First Class and veteran, founder and creator of the Veterans Legislative Voice, and she is an AHG correspondent. And don't forget, September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness and Hispanic Heritage Month. Make sure you go log into our website, americashg.org. See some of our old shows. You can see Stephanie Collada and some of the things she's been working on over the last few years. And then also make sure that you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, America's Heroes Group. How you doing, Stephanie?
I'm doing all right.
So are you concerned about this federal budget? This is something that we have until October 1st is our deadline. And once again, we're having this conversation about bills not being paid, appropriations bills not being paid, fees and things like that, that aren't being taken care of. So what's going on?
Well, that's why I said I'm doing all right, because it's a little stressful for myself and probably a good handful of veterans. And one of the reasons is because the VA is actually going through a budget shortfall as well. So that's been coming out in the last couple of weeks, that the VA is actually having a bit of a empty nest of budget funding, the mandatory funding, and that's mostly because of the PACT Act. And the PACT Act was so great; it helped a lot of veterans get enrolled into healthcare, get their VA disability. A lot of veterans, I believe 1 million veterans got their claims approved for burn pits and toxic exposures connected to the PACT Act. And 500,000 veterans were able to enroll because they opened up the space for more enrollment, more eligibility. So that's really great for veterans as well. Because once they can get healthcare within the VA, they can get some more things covered. They can get diagnosis. They can get tests, which could also help them with VA disability and compensation for their claims. So just getting that started is a really great step for a lot of veterans. But the problem is that so many veterans took advantage of this. So now the VA is running out of money. So typically VA disability does not really get affected by government shutdowns. They've made those precautions before, but right now there isn't anything for them to use when we do come up with that shortfall with the government possible government shutdown coming up with the budget.
I think it's heartbreaking that a lot of people that are still serving, I mean, thank God I never had to go through this, even though I was just getting a guard check for the most part. But service members having to go to work every day and not getting paid, and having to, you have families that are on food stamps. You have service member families that are living on public aid, and they could possibly go, who knows how long. I think the last one was 19 days or 39 days, wasn't it? The last one we had, 2019. I think that was one of the last ones we had.
Yes, I think. Oh goodness! Don't quote me on it. I am not going to estimate on how long we had that government shutdown. Yeah,
that was. You mean, so this the fact that we're in this situation again. Tell us a little bit what actually happens. I know that there's partial shutdowns and there's full blown, full shutdowns when depending on what's paid for, what's not paid for. So how does that play out, particularly when it comes to defense and with the Veterans Administration?
It depends on the type of continued resolution that they also are able to pass, because some continued resolutions that pass, they have approved for like just partial running of the government. And then other times it's full running just on the previous funding that they've had before, same amount of money. But then there's full on shutdowns like we had for Obamacare. And then we also had for when Trump was in office, yes, in 2019. So there's a varied amount of different things that can happen. What's coming up may be a full-on shutdown. It depends on what goes on and what gets agreed to. But there's a couple of things going on with the government right now, especially in the House, that's causing a lot of effects. And that's something called the SAFE Act. And so the SAFE Act has to do with this upcoming election. This is a bill that President Trump endorses. Excuse me, SAVE Act, SAVE. And so what it does is that it actually requires anyone that wants to vote, requires that they show their proof of citizenship. Yeah. So this is just to really stoke the fire on the argument that non-citizens are voting for federal elections, which is illegal and has been since the 90s, like an actual federal illegal act. And the problem is that the percentage of this, of non-citizens actually voting, what was it? The Brienne Center found that 0.0001% of the votes of the 2016 election were actually done by non-voters.
Wow. And then one of the things they're talking about too, as well, with the SAVE Act, is that they're actually wanting people to have proof of citizenship through things like a birth certificate. So it's not even something as simple as having a driver's license. They want some things that many people may not have readily available when they go to vote.
Yeah, it's their driver's license plus a birth certificate or something like that. It's not just that. You can also use your passport. There's other things that you can use, like, for instance, indigenous peoples. They have their tribal government ID with their applicant's birthplace and the citizenship. The thing is that they're really requiring a photo ID with the actual state of where they were born and certifying that you're a citizen. And the problem is that so many citizens don't have this document readily available. I am notorious for losing my birth certificate. God forbid I need that again. But I mean, I've just got my own passport because I'm planning on international travel. So thank God I have that. But not many people have passports. There's only a fraction of citizens that have passports nowadays, especially since it's god awful expensive. So, I mean, it's going to cause a lot of issues. It's going to cause a lot of a rush, especially when we're 2 months away from a federal election.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So close to the election, but then also the fact that you have Donald Trump, who's pushing this, and right now, that's the House Speaker is actually trying to push back on this because they know this could be disastrous if there's no budget passed, because you're trying. So people understand they want to attach this provision to make this part of the condition that there will be a budget. So they're not letting the Republican part of the Congress vote for or approve a budget until they add this provision, the SAVE Act, and put it into effect to make it hard for people to vote, because they believe that it will what they really believe is that it'll cause a lot of young people and the people that are more likely to vote Democratic to not be able to vote, because a lot of kids going to college are not going to have their birth certificates. A lot of young people won't have their birth certificates, or they won't have the Safe ID, or I forget the name of the idea with the flight ID. Now you have what's it called again?
So I know for real ID. Yeah, not many people have that either.
Right.
So in certain states still haven't actually gotten their stuff, or last I checked, but when I was in Washington, they haven't actually updated their state driver's license up to the standards for the real ID. So when I was supposed to be traveling when I was in Washington, they were starting to have issues with the FAA. So we would have to actually require additional paperwork whenever we had to fly.
Wow.
It was a mess. So I'm getting flashbacks from all of that mess as well. So we'll see how things go. Speaker Johnson was adamant for a while about having that included, and they were supposed to have a vote 4 days ago. But then hours before they were supposed to vote on this bill, he pulled the vote, or pretty much pulled it off the schedule. And it kind of caused a lot of ripples in effect, because a lot of speakers in the past, they don't put a bill out when they know they're going to win. So if they don't think that's going to pass, they don't put it out. And Speaker Johnson likely got enough people to tell him that they're not voting for it, because there's a lot of Republicans that were against that as well. Because it could actually affect a lot of the older citizens as well. So, I mean, just imagine the older senior citizens that don't have driver's licenses.
Right.
They probably don't have passports because they're too old to travel.
And who knows if they can find their birth certificate anywhere.
Right. And
if they need to go get it, how long would that take, especially if the government shuts down?
Yes. You can't just go to the ballot box with this bill. You can't just go to the ballot box with just your actual birth certificate. You need a photo ID on top of that. So then you have to get a state ID, not for the driver's license, which I know a lot of senior citizens don't actually get if they can't drive. So it's just another complication that they can add to it. Me being from Florida, because there's a lot of senior citizens here, they actually outnumber the youth population, the young population here. And Florida's greatest exporter are people that die and want to get buried back home. They come here to die. So I can only imagine how many senior citizens would be affected by this. Veterans sitting, they're at the VA-run senior citizen homes, and they could likely be affected by this as well. It can cause a lot of issues.
And how would you even implement that with, absentee ballots? I mean, how would that even work? I mean, how do you?
That's true. I didn't even think about that. That is so true.
Absentee ballot. I mean, that's, all this does is cause chaos and confusion, and we're literally just 2 months away from election day. I mean, less than 2 months away, to election day. How are you going to put all this stuff in place? And there was an NPR report not too long ago, about, I think it was last week, that talked about how, because a lot of people were saying, particularly from the Republican side and the conservative side, the right side, that they believe that elections are flawed, that there's so much cheating going on. People that are voting not supposed to vote, they're busing, as Trump said, busing people in to vote. They're illegal. They shouldn't be voting. Even though there was no evidence of these types of things, and even all the research and data that's been done, like you mentioned, found that there was really no any significant material and influence on trying to change an election or cheat votes, basically. So this basically is a false claim. However, every time they do put changes in these different states, the people that are the pollsters, the people that work the polls, have to get retrained and have to get retaught all of the new rules and things along those lines, which creates even more confusion, because now you get all these people back into these training facilities, get retrained on the new practices, and then be able to be ready by election day.
Yep. And then I'm also thinking about those poor people that volunteer, the poll workers. And with this bill coming up, and then more talk about it, more hate and vitriol about illegal immigrants, and pretty much anyone that doesn't look like an American citizen, so anyone that is not white, could possibly cause, get some type of issue and harassment just trying to go to the to their polling stations. Because last elections, 2022 and 2020, there were people, part of the militias, that have actually caused many issues. They were actually going to the polling stations and trying to harass people when they're going in to vote, to secure the ballot stations and things like that. Trump's actually encouraged people to do that. And that can cause more harassment for anyone that does not typically look like a citizen.
And that seems highly illegal at the same time, because really what you're doing is you're trying to intimidate people from voting and basically depriving them of their rights. and which is this, unfortunately, this country has a legacy that goes back all the way back to slavery. I mean, women couldn't vote, people of color couldn't vote, and
you didn't have a property.
And all kinds of tests and things. What they had the poll test or the poll taxes and poll tests and things to try to get people to not be able to qualify to vote, because they don't want those outcomes. They don't want the outcomes of their people losing, their elections, which is sad and pathetic, really.
Yeah, it is really sad and it's really frustrating. But the thing is that this also affects our current military right now, and that's because if we do a continued resolution, which not only just a government shutdown, but if we only just do a stopgap measure, which has been proposed for 6 months. And one of the reasons why the 6 months have been proposed one of the things that has been coming up with the federal budget that's going to be happening, potential shutdown or the continuing resolution, is that it's going to actually affect more than just our veterans, because the stopgap and things like that. It's going to affect our current military, and not just, that they're not going to get paid for a while. The thing is that so Defense Secretary Austin said that the stopgap measure would cut defense spending by more than $6 billion compared to 2025 spending proposal, and it would take money from new key priorities while underfunding programs that are no longer funding it. Or excuse me, let me say that again. And it would take money from key new priorities while overfunding programs that no longer need it. So basically, if they do a continued resolution for the defense, or for the Department of Defense, if they just do a continued resolution, that pretty much all they are doing is just copying the type of fundings that they had in 2024 and just putting it for the time frame in 2025 for whatever time that they agreed for the continued resolution. The problem is that it's not going to go to the new construction that they need, that they're going from new military housing. It's not going to go refurbish many different things that they need in the Department of Defense. So it can cause a lot more issues than it helps for the continued resolution. So Secretary Austin's really trying to get them to approve for the funding for the rest of the year, but I don't think he's going to be that successful with it.
So how likely, I was asking this question when we get into these budget government shutdowns, how likely do you feel that we are at the precipice of another shutdown? Oh yeah, and by the way, the last one was 35 days. And January 28, 2019, the CBO reported that estimated 35-day partial government shutdown cost the American economy at least $11 billion. $3 billion of that was permanent losses.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I have a feeling that we are going to head for a government shutdown. Speaker Johnson and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer are not in any type of agreement of how they want the funding to pass. And they really need to be at the same table to talk about what will pass, because it needs to pass the House and it needs to pass the Senate. If the House really wants it in one side, it's not going to pass over in the Senate, because that is still a majority for the Democrats. So they really need to sit down and talk to each other. And that is not a very common trend for the current Republicans in control right now. They want to do their own thing and screw anybody else, that wants to try to get things passed. They say my way or the highway. And that's not really how you work with bipartisanship. Can't be that way when the other party owns the other house.
And the sad part about it is you don't care. It shows that you don't care about the people, the constituents, because they're the ones that are going to suffer. I mean, we're talking about, national parks shutting down, military people not getting paid, depending on how long it goes. You have people that work for the TSA working for national security, homeland security, things like that. They're not getting paid. VA people aren't getting paid. I mean, so, and then people don't want to come into work when they're not getting paid. So, I mean, you're putting people, and then also, like we mentioned from the Congressional Budget Office report from 2019, it does have ripple effects and ends up costing you more money than to just go ahead and just approve a budget and then hash it out later on when you're meeting to make the next budget, as opposed to waiting to the last minute to try and use a political gimmick to try and mess with the election potentially. And this might backfire on the Republicans if a government shutdown does occur. Many people are saying that it probably will hurt the Republicans more than anything else and won't help their cause at all.
No, and it's actually, there is also another trend that's been voiced through particularly the House, and that's separating the big catch-all budget bill into 12. Now, typically there are a series of budget bills, 4 to 5. It depends on the year. Sometimes they make up and they combine a few or they separate a few, but there's about 4 or 5 different funding bills that do get, have to get processed. They're talking about separating it into 12, which is what they used to do a couple decades ago. And separating it into smaller bits can probably make things a lot easier for them to get things passed. And it will prevent people from just saying, nope, we're going to sit down here and filibuster until they add this specific thing to the bill, and hell with everything, how and when it doesn't get passed, because I'm just going to fight and sit here and make sure it doesn't, because I want my thing on the bill. Wow.
I wonder how I have a question I didn't research, but my question popped in my head now. How would a government shutdown affect the election? We're talking about a little bit less than 50 days away from it. But if it were to go that long, if they're so dug in and we did come to that point, first of all, I don't see any of that stuff ever getting passed. As far as the SAVE Act, I don't see the SAVE Act ever becoming a reality. It just doesn't make any sense. No. It causes more problems and may even be unconstitutional.
Yeah, and that one, I don't know if this current Supreme Court will actually say that it's unconstitutional the way that this court is. So it's very possible that one of the district courts may say that. So as it goes through the paces, we'll see. But the states run the elections, even the federal elections. So the funding's there for that. That should already be secured and that should already be done. So that part, I'm not really worried about how the government shutdown will affect the federal election, because the state and cities already have that worked out. So we should be good there on the regular processing for that.
So now, what else do you think is important for veterans to know now, and what should we be doing to try to make sure that on as far as the new legislation and things that could help veterans, what should we be focusing on right now?
Honestly, calling your senators and House representatives on telling them to pass a federal budget, especially for the VA disability shortfall. So many veterans depend on that VA disability to pay the bills, because they live paycheck to paycheck, disability check to disability check very often. And having that miss can cause a lot of issues. Thankfully, I'm good. But I know a lot of veterans will not be good if they don't get that check on October 1st. So it's definitely call your House representatives and senators and just tell them to pass the funding for that, because that's really important. I can imagine a lot of veterans getting really ticked off, if that actually fails and the government shutdown happens and then the federal election. That'll be quite interesting to see. It will be very terrible to watch, because I know a lot of people that would be affected, but it would be quite interesting to see how that would affect on everybody's emotions for the election.
A few weeks ago, or a few months ago, a few shows ago, you and I talked. And once again, I said, I still believe, and it looks like it's more and more likely this is going to occur, is that I didn't see Donald Trump getting reelected. And now I advocated for Joe Biden to step down. I did think he was, a little bit long in the tooth and was probably better off, letting someone else take the reins. And I also think it's a good idea that they did put Kamala Harris in. How much confidence do you have in Kamala Harris's policies when it comes to her views on creating more aid and help for veterans, and also veteran policies?
Well, see, I wasn't a fan of Kamala Harris when she ran for president. I wasn't a fan of hers, which is fine. No, I mean, there were plenty of people to select for 2020. There was a lot of options out there, but she wasn't my pick. But it was mostly because of the policies that she had. I did like her as a senator. I watched her in the Senate hearings, and she kicked butt, and it was great to watch. And she was really good at asking the right questions and making sure that certain things are asked and brought up. And so I really did like her in that aspect. But yes, her policies did change for this upcoming election. And it's probably because of her mentorship under President Joe Biden, because her views did become more center, because Joe Biden was more center, and a lot more bipartisanship was what she went after, as well as to making sure that, you know, the government can run, the country can continue to run. And also, I think she's also hearing a lot of people's issues, a lot of constituents, because the ability to find affordable childcare, you know, the inflation, a lot of different things that are coming up that regular citizens are having issues with. She's actually hearing this happening. And so it would be really great for her to win. And I really do I do think she will win, but I feel like I need to knock on wood as I'm saying this, because I'm really superstitious when it comes to these things, which is crazy because I'm more of a stats data person. But
just from watching Trump's history, I just knew he was going to just blow himself up. I just knew he's his own worst enemy, and he doesn't realize that and won't admit that. And that's kind of the problem, I think, with Trump. So I mean, I knew at some point he was going to do something, say something. And you know, even if it was Biden, I think Biden, he did have me worried, but I'm so thankful that he did decide to step back. I wasn't a big fan of Kamala Harris either when she ran for president, mainly because when she was the DA, she was put a provision in, or recommended a provision where they wanted to arrest parents for truancy. And I thought that was the silliest thing. And then she, like in a press conference, is a very well-known clip of where she's like trying to explain it, and she like giggles, and that kind of, you know, they gave her a pretty bad taste in my mouth and a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths when she did that, you know. But I was impressed once again with how she's handled herself and her growth and development as a leader. And watching on that debate stage, I think she proved it. Yeah.
And I agree. And I'm really happy about her choice with Governor Tim Walz. I didn't know who he was when she picked, or when he was part of the list of the top 3. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure about that one. But when I did my research, I love that man. He's very great. He helps a ton of people out, and he's a veteran, and he understands what veterans go through. So I really do believe that he's a great selection, and that's her great judgment.
Wow. Well, Stephanie, as always, it's great to have you on our show. You always do a great work as a correspondent, and keep us posted on what we need to know in the future.
Okay. Thank you so much.
This is America's Heroes Group. We're right back.
Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Hi, I'm U.S. Army National Guard veteran Sean Claiborne, and welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable for Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness and Hispanic Heritage Month. And also make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, America's Heroes Group, and check out our website, americashg.org. And with us today, Cara Anthony. She's a KFF Health News journalist, and we're going to talk about something that most people don't talk about, and that is silence in Sixton. How you doing, Cara?
Good, yeah. And Sean, I'm just two quick things. I'm Cara Anthony, and it's Silence in Sykeston. I don't know, since we're not live. Yeah, I don't know, since we're not live, is there a chance to
redo it? I'll just go redo it. Okay, man, we're gonna restart it.
Yeah, and I'm Cara, and it's Silence in Sykeston.
What did I say? I did say Cara Anthony. What did I say?
Cara.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Cara, like you care about somebody. Yeah, and it's Sykeston. That's perfect. And I'm glad, since it's not live, we get a chance, right?
Yeah, gotta redo it. It's pretty good. Okay, let me restart it. Okay, I'm gonna start my timer. All right. Hi, I'm U.S. Army National Guard veteran Sean Claiborne, and welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable for Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness and Hispanic Heritage Month, and we have with us Cara. Did I say it right? Cara Anthony, KFF Health News journalist. And we're going to talk about her article and a documentary she's working on and a podcast along with that called Silence in Sykeston.
Yeah, thanks.
How you doing, Cara?
Good. Okay. Thanks for having me, Sean. I'm glad to be here.
It's my pleasure. So tell me who Lemon Anthony is, a World War II vet that was part of he was a member of your family, and what happened to him.
Yeah, Lehman Anthony is my great uncle. He was unfortunately killed by the police in West Tennessee in 1946. I recently penned an essay about his killing, which was sort of a family secret for a long time. My dad, I had a conversation with him about what happened to our uncle, and it just led to a larger conversation about why we need to talk about racial trauma in America and why it's okay to break the silence about that. And so it's been a long journey, but I'm glad that we're here because hopefully other families can also have these conversations.
Now, your uncle was from the Boot Hill. Tell us about the Boot Hill and what it's like to live there.
So my uncle, so I've been doing a lot of work in the Boot Hill. My uncle actually was in West Tennessee. That's where most of our family is from. But the Boot Hill of Missouri is the southeast corner of Missouri where I've been doing a lot of work. And so that, and looking at the little told history of racial trauma there. And as I was telling these stories and interviewing other Black families in that part of the country, my dad kind of said, hey, wait a minute. do you know about our family's history, our past? And that's when my Uncle Lehman's story really came to the forefront. And my dad had been holding on to our Uncle Lehman's story for like at least a decade before he shared it with me. But yeah, I've been looking into racial violence and police killings in the Boot Heel of Missouri for the past 4 years. And I think right after year 1 or so, my dad said, okay, daughter, like, let's have a conversation about us. And so it led to this essay, and soon a podcast episode will be dropped about what happened to my uncle.
And you have a full-length documentary coming out. Is that tomorrow? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's out. It's out. It's available on all, like on YouTube, the PBS app, World Channel. If you have World Channel, it's available there as well. And it's a feature-length documentary that tells the story about the community that I've been looking at, Sykeston, Missouri, for the last 4 years. And it tells the story of a lynching that happened there in 1942. And it talks about how particularly Black people in the community didn't feel safe enough to talk about that lynching, even though they were living under the weight and strain of it, even today. And so we go all the way from 1942 to 2020, and we examine the silence around that lynching, but also a police killing of a young man named Denzel Taylor, who was shot and killed by Sykeston police in 2020, just a few months before George Floyd was killed by the police. And so while the country was erupting for what happened to George Floyd in Sykeston, people remained mostly silent around this particular police killing. And so that's one thing that we discuss. We talk about why it's difficult to have these conversations, but why they're absolutely necessary. And so you can learn more about that in the podcast, which really talks about the public health impact.
Why do you think it is that African Americans, Black people, we tend to not talk about these things to even yet today? And how dangerous is that when you look at history? Because this is not just what's going on in Sykeston that's not being talked about, but the race riots that have been forgotten and kind of almost erased from history. Tulsa, Oklahoma, here in Bronzeville, in Chicago, all these different stories of Black neighborhoods being burned to the ground. Race riots, things along those lines. Why are we so silent?
Deeply connected to safety, right? Even now, people have questions. They've asked questions about my personal safety and unearthing these stories, but people didn't talk about it because they didn't want the same thing to happen to them or their family members. And today, I think we are grappling with this idea of, are we better? Are we healed? Can we move on? We don't need to talk about these issues anymore. But in the podcast, we say, like, yes, we absolutely need to have these conversations, because generation after generation is dealing with the issue of racism, racial violence in some kind of way. Even when we don't talk about it, you're living with the wound that's almost like we need to have major surgery, right? And not just put a Band-Aid on it and say, hey, everything is fine. So that way we can move forward, to have a better future, to live longer and healthier lives. But I think a lot of the silence today could also be connected to some shame. Let's just be honest. It's not fun to talk about these things. People have buried these histories for years because we don't want to say that happened to us, or that happened to our family, or we were the type that we fought back. We didn't take things lying down. But it's like, the reality is, it's like these things happen all the time, and it's okay to discuss them. But a lot of times you'll hear my aunt talk about it in the podcast, is that so many families for years, Black families, felt powerless. And that's something that we can all empathize with, but it's still important for us to really have these conversations, because it's the first step towards healing.
And your article touches on something that I think not too many people are aware of, which is the idea that these types of experiences, these negative experiences, lead to trauma, which also leads to affecting your health. So we're talking about, increases in, high blood pressure, which leads to all kinds of different things. Tell us a bit about that. And that's interesting. I wanted to give you some stats that are built upon what you wrote about in your article.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you witness something, even looking at something like a police killing online today, that can weigh on your mental health. So, yes, you can deal with anxiety, you can deal with depression, you can even become suicidal, unfortunately. And then that can also weigh on your physical health, like you mentioned, the high blood pressure, heart disease, even cancer can become more of an issue because unfortunately these things have an impact. And we talk about in episode 3 something called epigenetics, about how it can even weigh on your genes, your nervous system can be affected, your gut can be affected by this. And this is all backed up by studies by researchers at universities across the country. We've cited all of these things to be true. And that's also why we need to have the conversation, because a lot of times the factor that we're not discussing when it comes to our health is racism, and it can play a huge role on your health. So we go deep into that in the podcast.
So looking up some information, so American Heart Association, they say, and this is a quote off of their website and also in the report that they wrote, the rate of high blood pressure among Black people in the United States is among the highest in the world. 55% of African Americans in the United States have high blood pressure. And this, of course, leads to stroke, heart attack, kidney disease. The Journal of Hypertension says 31% of all Africans, 31% of all Africans have high blood pressure. So the entire continent of Africa, 31% versus United States, 55%. World Health Organization says about 40%, but between 31 and 40%, still way less stress going on, less incidence of high blood pressure in Africa than it is in the United States, one of the richest countries in the world. Okay. American Cancer Society, for most types of cancer, Black people have the highest death rate and the shortest survival of any racial ethnic group in the United States. Black women have a 41% increased chance, 40% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women, and also get fewer diagnoses. There's also the report on cancer facts and figures from the American Black people, on American Black people. This was a report done in 2024. They covered from 2022 to 2024. Death by assaults, homicides, and legal interventions ranks 5th, the 5th leading cause of death, and ranks 18th for whites. 5th leading cause of death for Black people, 18th for whites. 8,854 Black deaths versus 3,823 whites, when whites basically make up close to 58% of the population. Blacks only 14%, 12 to 14%, depending on what you look at. 46 million out of a population of 333 million. Stress and trauma caused by police violence and also by this violence in general in our Black communities. What are some of the things and tools we have in our toolboxes to try to counteract this tide?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and we're making strides, even with you allowing me to be on the show today, is like starting to have a conversation. I think that's the very first step. And we talk about how the art of communicating about these things is difficult. It's difficult to talk about it. Sometimes people don't know what to say. That's why we named the podcast Silence in Sikeston. It's a podcast about finding the words to say the things that go unsaid. And so I think that's the very first thing people can do. But it's also really important for us to have conversations about our family's health history. That's the other thing we don't talk about a lot of times when we, in Black families, we don't know who has what and what's in our bloodline and what are we more likely to get than others. And so that's really, I think, where things start. And then doing the best you can to take care of yourself. We talk about each generation has a piece of the work to do. Aisha Lee is a professor at Penn State University who I have a conversation with in episode 2. And she talks about how these issues have compounded over generations. And so it's not going to change overnight, but rather each generation can do their part. And so I think about now, what are the steps that I can take, to be better and do better and be a healthier person. But I'm also thinking about my 7-year-old daughter as well, So I think that that's the way we that's the first step, is to start having conversations around these things so that we can get access to the resources and tools that we need. And then also talking to your doctor and your physician about the issues that you may be having. I've written extensively through the years about something called culturally competent care, which just says that it's important for you. A lot of times studies have shown that when a person of color or a Black person is treated by a person who is culturally competent, they have better health outcomes. And if you can't find a culturally competent doctor, maybe you can find a culturally humble doctor who at least say, hey, I don't know everything that is going on, but I'm willing to help and hear you out and, hopefully point you in the right direction so that you can be better. And so I think those are some of the steps that we could take, seeking culturally competent care, having conversations, and thinking about the future, the next generation. All of those things are very important.
One thing I did see as a bright spot in our U.S. history is that Black folks are getting more prosperous. Poverty is decreasing. So in 1955, 55% of Blacks lived in poverty. In 2022, the U.S. Census reports that 17%, I'm sorry, lived in poverty as Black people. 11.5% across the entire United States live in poverty. 17 from 55% in 1955 to 17% in 2022. So there's progress being made there. However, we still see high prevalence of violence against in the Black community, and also perpetrated by law enforcement, and these negative health outcomes, which haven't seemed to budge really much at all over the last 70 years or so. So when you look at how generations have changed, how do white younger generations, how have you seen their attitudes change? Has racism or people's attitudes in the white community gotten better over your experience and your research?
Yeah, I think you reference progress being made, and that's absolutely true. I think we are doing a lot better in this country when it comes to seeing Black people advance and progress. I am a mom who is now a homeowner, and I'm very proud of that. My siblings are doing very well for themselves. You see more Black Americans now in leadership roles, as they should be and as they always should have been, and that's a beautiful thing. But the reality is that racism is still a huge issue in this country, particularly institutional racism. And we talk about that as well in the podcast in episode 4. I mean, look, we've made progress, but we still have a long way to go. And hopefully people will be able to hear that and see that and understand, that we're talking about this because it is still an issue. I think it's easy to turn away and just say oh, things are better now, but it might not be what we remember. Jim Crow laws, but there are other issues now that I think that need to be directly addressed, because it's like this idea of overt versus covert. It's like, mm-hmm. It might be more subtle. I've written also about the idea of what is a microaggression. Some people have called it, researchers have called it death by 1,000 cuts. And so it's those daily interactions that so many of us still deal with and are trying to work through. And those issues weigh on your nervous system and weigh on your health. And so we might be in the boardroom, but once we get in the boardroom, sometimes we have to fight to be there and, talk about why we should be there. And that's exhausting, And so, yes, we've made progress, but we still have a long way to go.
Hmm. So how do you feel that younger white generations feel about racism? Do you think as that's improved? The reason why I bring that up is because when I remember when George Floyd was murdered, I saw way more Black Lives Matter signs in white neighborhoods of Chicago than I did in Black neighborhoods of Chicago. Driving down, Lawrence Avenue, I saw every other building, every other business had a BLM sign or a poster or something in their window. Didn't see that really hardly at all in a Black neighborhood.
Yeah, I do think that there's a younger generation, particularly talking about white millennials, who are now what people use the term, awoke or awake and awaken to the issues in a big way. But I think there is progress being made there, but there's also work that needs to be done, because it goes back to this conversation about generations and what are we passing down and what are we choosing to take on as our own beliefs and values and traditions. And so unfortunately, sometimes things that an oppressive position could be passed down. But then there are people that are breaking the mold and deciding, you know what, that isn't the country that I want to live in. That isn't the future that I want for myself or for my children. And so, yeah, I do think that there is a movement in this country for us to be better and to do better. And that includes, many white millennials who are, observing all of this in the same way we are.
Mm-hmm. It seems like trauma and stress I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, but trauma and stress seem to be the underlying common thread to all of these health issues. And we've said this before, people growing up in the past, my parents even telling me that, if they'd be much healthier if they weren't under so much stress all the time, trying to just get by through the day. I always thought that if you had more money, then you would have less stress, but even that is not really coming out to be true. So what are some of the things that we can do to try to alleviate some of that stress and teach our kids how to do the same?
Yeah, I think this, I can just share personally, while we were making this podcast and while our team we were putting together the film, I had to remind myself, to go outside and to drink water and to move my body, and to just, I remember one day I was particularly stressed about something that we were putting together, and a friend just said, breathe. And I thought, whoa, that's revolutionary. Black rest is revolutionary. And we need to remember that, like sleep. I have a sister who's always reminding me that she's like, there needs to be one living thing or two living things on your plate. And that's her way of saying, eat your vegetables. These things are important because we deserve to be healthy. We deserve to live long and free and be happy. The Black people do live with a lot of stress and heartache, and we have a lot that we go through on a daily basis, but our joy matters too. And so we have to remember to laugh and enjoy our family and friends, and to get out there in the world and just take a deep breath sometimes. So these are the things that I recommend, because they're things that I've done, and therapy is so important. I can't express that enough. There's been a long time, there's a stigma in our community about, not going to therapy or what that means, for generations. Black pastors stood in as therapists, barbers stood in as therapists. You go to your salon, you might talk about different things like that, but it's really important for us. Right, exactly. The bartenders, everybody. But I think it's really important for us to pursue those professionals as well, in addition to talking to people in your community about your issues, because I can't tell you how much healing comes from that alone. So
what was the biggest thing you learned in your journey making this podcast? What was the most impressive thing that was put upon you?
It's really important for us to understand the value of preserving these stories. So many of the people that I talk to are now gone. I talked to matriarchs of their family who remembered the lynching that happened in Sykeston, Missouri in 1942. Unfortunately, they did not live to see this film, but we captured and preserved the story. My father dealt with a number of health issues while we were making this, and while I was asking him about his uncle who was killed by the police in the 1940s. And I just couldn't imagine, I just thought about, oh my gosh, I would have hate to have lost him, and I never want to lose him, because who would want to? But just the importance of preserving these stories for the next generation so that they can learn and read about our history. It's so important to preserve our history, because that's how we get better. That's how we grow. And there's some acknowledgement. It'll help hopefully for my daughter. It'll help her connect the dots as she grows older. And so I think that's the biggest thing I learned. It's just the power of storytelling, the power of saying it out loud. At the end, I won't give it all away. People should just check out Silence in Sikeston. You'll hear more about it, but that's what I'll say.
Now, how many episodes are you going to have on your podcast, or is it going to be an ongoing thing?
It's a narrative podcast, and so you'll hear tape of me kind of going around Sikeston and doing interviews, and then a guest and I talk about the issues. And so that's the setup. So it's a 4-part limited series, and so that's it. But it's definitely worth it. A new episode drops every Tuesday, and so we hope people check it out.
Wow. I think that's really amazing, the work you're doing. And I think I really do appreciate the fact that you're going through and actually bringing this history to the forefront, because so many African Americans, people that I've talked to, we'd have no idea of those experiences, particularly we see every day on the news police shootings and things along those lines. We've talked about that actually in 2 other segments just today. But we don't remember or know about the history of what happened in, Tulsa, what happened in Bronzeville, what happened in many cities across the United States during the race riots, and then even race riots that weren't even put in the newspaper or silenced in the newspaper. And us not talking and sharing those stories and pass these stories on to future generations. It seems to, in a lot of ways, then it seems like we're losing part of our culture in that missing history. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, Cleo Wright's story, when I first traveled to Sikeston, Missouri, I was going down there to tell a story about a lynching that happened and to interview one person who saw it. As we did more research, I found, and a team of researchers confirmed as well, and the director of the film also confirmed, that this was America's first federally investigated lynching. The first time the FBI investigated lynching as a crime, they came to Sikeston, Missouri. And so it just reinforced the importance of this, and how, I was so confused. I was like, how is this not in our history books? And then it just kind of grew from there. It went from one short story that was going to be maybe 900 words to a feature-length film, a 4-part podcast, a personal essay, and a digital story that I'm working on now, because I realized, I told my editors and everyone, agreed, our team agreed that this was really important, because we are losing those histories and we need to preserve them now.
I really appreciate your time. It gives us a lot of information, a lot of things to chew on. And always, again, you kind of give us something to think about and try to study and learn more. So I definitely can't wait to see your documentary. I have checked out a couple of your podcasts, and I thought they were well put together and very wonderful. You have a great voice in your podcast. You think your voice coach is doing a good job.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, Vicki Merrick, she's great. Yeah, thanks, and thanks for having me on talk about this issue, Sean. It means a lot.
My pleasure. Carrie Anthony, KFF Health News journalist. We talked about her documentary and podcast, Silence in Sikeston. Go check it out. It's on Amazon. Is that right?
Oh, Silence in Sikeston is available on YouTube, the PBS app, and World Channel.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Welcome to AHG Connect.